Hello, Louise.
Hello, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode. We are reading The Mistress's Daughter by A.M. Holmes. And we've gotten to an interesting part of her journey where she starts talking to her birth father, Norman.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy,
I mean,
to say the
yes,
least.
he is. I liked how, when she was going to meet him, they were meeting at the lawyer's office, like a
Yes.
neutral territory. And she sees someone walk in and she's like, "Is that him?" And it's like anyone could be him. He could be anyone. This is what it's like when you don't know who you are,
Mm-hmm. And she
which is,
brings up
how we
that
all
yeah.
went through that. It's
She
our
brings up
lives.
that little children's book. Are you my mother? Are you my mother? Are
Mhm.
you my mother?
Yeah.
And she's like a little kid waiting there. And the lawyer's office is a little bit poignant too, because that's where he met with the bio mom to
Mhm.
arrange everything. He's big on meeting at his lawyer's office, which tells you a lot about him.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
He's a complicated person. And the way she writes, it's just so, I mean, she wrote this so many years ago.
Uh,
And I'm thinking she hadn't had in-depth conversations with
no.
other adoptees. So just I she had read up on, and by this point maybe she had met BJ Lifton. I'm not sure, but there were a couple things in here where she talks about
Yeah,
uh
reading about the complications of seeing your father and how you'll feel and
having those,
attraction issues.
yes, which she didn't actually come out and say, but just that
No.
those thoughts run through your head.
Yeah, I can totally
Um,
see that. Well, and when she met with you and I on the podcast, I felt like it was one of the first times she's talked to two adoptees a lot,
mhm. In depth, like in
in
that really
depth.
deep
Yeah, like we
way
used to
in which
talk all the time, but not in depthly. We would just
because we
skirt
didn't
it.
know. It's so,
No.
it's just so who I was talking to someone over the weekend about adoption and then thinking about my brother Todd, that
Mhm.
I don't know that he's ever talked in depth to anyone about it. It's such a relief and release to
It
have this
is.
now and have this community and
It really is. I always thought my mind was just swimming with like crazy thoughts.
mhm.
Or does anyone see who I really am? And all these things. And then when you and I started talking deeply about it, I'm like, oh, this is huge. Like, and how did we not for so long? We would skirt the issue. It's just,
Well, because
yeah,
we were still, I hate to say in the fog, but
yeah, it
we
is
were there and we were still sort of loyal to the
protective.
idea
Mm,
of adoption being such a wonderful thing. We were
yeah.
still loyal to that idea. And now our eyes have been opened like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot of complexities here, a lot of
Yes.
it isn't that isn't true,
No, it's
so
very layered.
very.
Excuse me.
What else jumped out of
Well,
you?
once again, we always talk about her humor in the writing. So if you're
I
reading
know.
along, how about when she first talks to her dad? There's a part where he says, um, I feel like a foreign diplomat exchanging official gifts. Tell me a little bit about you, I say. I'm not circumcised, he tells her. Okay, maybe it wasn't the first thing he said, but it was certainly the second. My grandmother was a strict Catholic. She had me baptized. I'm not circumcised. And she said, it's a strange information to have about your father. We've just met and he's telling me about his dick.
I
I don't,
know.
I was so unprepared for that. I was like, wow.
I had remembered that from when I read it all those years ago. The other thing that about her father, about her birth father, which I found so off-putting, which she writes so well about, is just how much he talks so poorly
Oh,
of her birth mother, who was 15 years old when he started having an affair with her.
I mean, think
And he
about
was
the age.
32.
Yes, that's gross.
It's gross.
Yeah, because he
I don't
makes it
care
like
if
she
it
was a
was
little
like
tramp or
the
something.
1960s. It's gross.
It is gross. She was a child. And
Yeah.
and he's still fascinated by her, wants to know
Right.
what
Like
she's doing,
almost
obsessed.
obsessed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um, there was a lot in here. There was some great quotes about how
Oh,
you
and then when he
feel.
said
Yeah.
to her, well, I would have taken you to a nice lunch,
Uh-huh.
but you're not dressed right or whatever it was he said. Like,
It's funny you have that look. I have this whole thing judging.
yes.
Like he had this whole judging. They went to get their DNA tested, which again, he's like, I'll pay for it. And she's like, okay, I don't
Yeah.
thank you for this gift. And she has to have proof for his wife.
Which
When yet
who
they
knows
look
if that was even true? Well, I guess
yeah,
that'll be
we'll
revealed.
find
but
out. And they look exactly alike. She said it's like
the
seeing
same
her
ass.
the same ass. The first time
I recognize that ass.
yeah. I love that part. You guys have to read this, readers, listeners.
Yeah.
The part she says that she's never seen her body on somebody else.
Yes.
I think that's really interesting. When I first met my bio cousins, I remember looking at all of them and we have the same body structure, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I said something like, oh, this. And they said, we all have that. Like,
Yeah.
funny. Like, and that's a weird thing to see your body on somebody else. Now I see it a little bit through my son. But at this time, when she
Becker
was
has
that
his
age.
dad's body, but we have, for me, it was like like when I first met my birth mother and sisters, like the faces, like my face on someone else, my hand movements on someone else. This weekend I was with my family, my stepmother, she was showing me pictures of this trip that they went on. And there was a picture of my stepsister, one of my stepsisters, and my stepmother said, oh, I really think she looks so much like Elliot in this picture, which is our nephew.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if it ever occurs to them that I never had that, right? Like that that I don't look through family pictures in that family and there's nobody that looks like me, or, I wonder, I don't even think it's such a natural thing for them, something that they just are so used to.
I was reading on Adoptee Twitter today, somebody said, when will people start understanding what it's like to be adopted? And I was thinking, honestly, they can't. Yeah, if you're not adopted, you can understand it like we understand something we're not part of. But unless you have it, like my brother, he doesn't think about it when we're all looking at family pictures, and I've gotten more aware of it, how everybody will share something and I'll be like, oh, and then I'll think, wow, that they all look so much alike and everyone's talking about it. And it's a very strange feeling now. I've always had it, but now I'm really acutely aware of it.
Yes. Acutely aware of it. Yeah. Yeah. That's how I felt this weekend.
And nobody does notice. Like they don't know.
And I did show, I was showing I guess my stepmother and my dad just a picture of Tilda when she was, I think I posted to Twitter. She was holding my half brother, and then I was holding Becker, and we look remarkably alike in that picture. And I showed them, they're like, oh,
what was the reaction? Just
like, oh,
yeah. Acknowledging. That's an odd thing.
Maybe it makes them uncomfortable. I would understand that. I don't know. We were also walking, rather I was hobbling from my broken toe.
That's another story.
Yes.
What else?
I like also what there was just, back to that, him talking about the way she dressed, and like his comment, like, you don't wear jewelry. And she says, I'm single. I live in New York City. I'm not wearing a dress. I know exactly what he's thinking.
Right.
Like he's so, such of an era,
Oh yeah. Well, in her family, I love how she talks about the family she was raised with. They were, vegetarians, and they had artsy people and homosexual people, and you didn't wear flashy jewelry, and you shopped at, you cared about the environment.
Yes.
And she's just like, she just sits there. Like, how do you explain who you are? And I like also, she said something that has to do with what we were just talking about. He says, tell me about your people.
Yes.
To her.
He is so disassociated from her.
That he's even her people.
Right. Like it doesn't, almost like he doesn't have, I don't know. That's interesting. I felt I had the same sort of.
Wait, what's that mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did highlight this. He says to her, how will you feel if the test comes back and I'm not your father? And she's like, you're my father. I wasn't positive before, but now seeing you and seeing your ass, my ass, I'm sure. But she says, to be adopted is to be adapted, to be amputated and sewn back together again. Whether or not you regain full function, there will always be scar tissue.
The greatest quote.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I feel like we should
Really,
end on
really.
that because that's like unbelievable, actually.
Yes. And you know, clearly the DNA test came back. And
Yeah.
he was her father.
And they had to have a big meeting about that too.
Yes. A formal meeting, you know. It was also kind of interesting how they kept meeting in hotel lobbies.
Yes.
Motel lobbies, I guess. Well, not motels, but you know.
She was wondering why. And I was
tier.
thinking, because he doesn't want to run into people.
Right. Exactly.
Like you're having an affair with
Yep.
your, you know, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dig in. It's very hard for me to stop, but I find if I don't stop, I talk about the wrong section when we're
yeah. I mean, sometimes I go on a little bit
yeah.
further, but yeah.
It's so good. Well, this is
such a
awesome.
She's just such a fantastic writer.
Yeah, I'm having fun with the memoir series, and we're going to do other memoirs coming up. So make sure you're reading, and we're going to tell people ahead of time so you can buy the books and all of that stuff.
And now we have a really great guest. She's got an interesting story, so stick around.
See you soon.
See you soon.